In Russia, the pilot operation of solid oil, an innovative fuel for nuclear reactors, has begun. This fuel has become a light at the end of the tunnel amid the onset of the global energy crisis. How did the Russians manage to predict everything again and make a decisive move while other countries are fighting over hydrocarbons and supply routes? We'll also tell you about the new hero of the week in today's episode, right after a brief summary of positive news. At the Shredny shipyard, the fourth passenger catamaran of Project 04710 was launched. 3 crab fishing vessels of Project 0341 have been laid down at the Nakutkinsky ship repair plant. The tests of the motor bogie frame for the first Russian high-speed electric train have been completed. Tests of a prototype plasma engine for deep space flights have begun at the National Research Center Kurchatov Institute. The electroplating shop at the Komsomolsk aviation plant has been modernized. The Cherepovets metallurgical plant has launched a new foundry complex. Serial production of snow compaction machines has started in Chelyabinsk, and a production line for turbine housing parts has been launched. Production of tools for CNC machines has been launched in Sverdlovsk region. There is a large cardboard production facility and a livestock complex in the Moscow region. As a result of the war against Iran and the blockade of the Hormuz Strait, a significant part of the world realized that it is critically dependent on oil and gas supplies, and so-called green energy, despite the enormous investments made, is not able to fully compensate for the loss of hydrocarbons. And even if the situation miraculously normalizes right now, the energy crisis will continue to hold back economic development for a long time. It's amazing, but it seems that history really doesn't teach us anything. In the 1970s, we already saw all of this: the oil embargo, then the surge in prices, and the complete vulnerability of the importing countries, especially in Europe. However, back then, some countries, especially France, which depended on foreign hydrocarbon supplies for 3/4 of its needs, made the right bet on nuclear energy. As a result of a large-scale program, in just a few years, the French built dozens of reactors, becoming the European leader in nuclear energy. Today, no one can even dream of such a pace. Other countries, the United States, the United Kingdom, South Korea, and Japan, also made breakthroughs in nuclear technology. And the logic behind these actions was clear to everyone. Nuclear fuel does not require daily deliveries. It can be stockpiled on your own territory and used steadily and predictably at nuclear power plants, reducing dependence on both prices and route blockades or political crises. However, the lesson learned in the 70s eventually lost its effect, and the nuclear industry was sacrificed for the sake of green energy. Almost everywhere, but fortunately not in Russia. Russia, despite the collapse of the USSR, difficult decades, crises, and then total sanctions, not only refused to give up its nuclear industry when almost no one believed in it, but also stubbornly continued to develop it. The result exceeded all expectations. The state corporation Rosatom has become a world leader in the construction of nuclear power units abroad, while its Western competitors have fallen into decline. But most importantly, Russian specialists were able to think ahead and ask themselves, what will happen when the world remembers nuclear energy again and starts building new nuclear power plants on a large scale? The answer was alarming. There won't be enough uranium for everyone, and the increased volume of nuclear waste will become a serious problem. Foreseeing this, we began to build our energy system of the future, in which special types of nuclear fuel in special reference reactors could be used multiple times, and the nuclear waste already accumulated on the planet would become raw material for operating nuclear power plants. This will allow us to save valuable uranium and prevent the planet from turning into a radioactive dump. We won't bore you with the details of the work. We've already described many of its stages in our previous episodes. We'll just tell you about the latest significant achievement, the very same solid oil that was loaded into the reactor this week. This week, at the first power unit of the Balakovo nuclear power plant, new fuel assemblies were loaded into the VVR-1000 reactor for the first time, including innovative uranium-plutonium MOX fuel. Its special feature is that it contains depleted uranium, which is a byproduct of enrichment and has accumulated in huge quantities. Previously, it was believed that it could only be used in fast neutron reactors. Russia has proven this in practice as a result of many years of experiments. In January 2026, the BN-800 reactor was fully switched to MOX fuel, which was a global breakthrough. Now we have taken another significant step by partially loading a thermal reactor with such fuel. This is important because most reactors in the world, including in Russia, are thermal reactors. If the experimental operation stage is successful, we will start using MOX fuel in new reactors as well, the VVER-1200 reactor, which will lead to a reduction in natural uranium consumption by more than 20%. This alone could become a lifeline for global energy, because as predicted, everyone wanted to develop their own nuclear power plants, but the uranium market is not ready to meet the growing demand. However, that's not all. Russia continues to work on other types of remix fuel. The strategic goal is to create a two-component nuclear power system in which fast and thermal reactors operate in a closed fuel cycle, and the spent fuel from some installations becomes the raw material for fresh fuel for other reactors. This will make humanity's energy base virtually unlimited, and we are moving quite successfully in this direction, while others are only just beginning to realize what is happening. At a recent nuclear energy summit in Paris, the head of the European Commission, Ursula von der Leyen, called Europe's abandonment of nuclear energy a strategic mistake. I wonder if anyone will remember that it was she, Ursula von der Leyen, who, as a minister in the German government in 2011, contributed to the decision to abandon nuclear energy. History doesn't teach anyone anything because no one remembers it. However, now the country once again has Europe scrambling. Now Italy, Belgium, Greece, Sweden, the United Kingdom, and some other countries are hastily lifting old bans and thinking about how to attract investors. The problem is that their existing nuclear power plants are very outdated. The West has forgotten how to build new ones, and bureaucracy makes progress at anything like the pace of the 1980s impossible. Moreover, it's not just about building the plants, but also about the supply chain for nuclear fuel and handling its waste. In this matter, all roads once again lead to Russia, which hasn't wasted any time and has strengthened its industry, becoming a world leader. The nuclear renaissance began even before the current war against Iran, and now it has only gained momentum. Russia is more prepared for it than anyone else. Is a political factor that cannot be ignored. Congrats to everyone on the achievement, and we wish you more victories. Next, the announcement and the rescue story. For several weeks in a row, the Russian submarine project 941, Akula, and two multi-purpose submarines of the main Directorate of Deep Sea Research were carrying out a secret mission in British waters. According to the statement of the British Minister of Defense, John Hill, they were operating in the area where international communication cables pass and could have been installing explosive or spying devices there. One way or another, the British fleet, with support from the Norwegian fleet, was unable to interfere and could only silently observe what was happening from a respectful distance. Starting this week, the Russian fleet has acted much more decisively. Our warships openly escorted sanctioned tankers through the English Channel, and no one dared to block their way. there will be more to come. The entire merchant fleet working with Russia, according to the government's order, will soon be transferred under our flag, and the so-called shadow fleet will practically cease to exist. And this is a direct consequence of the global changes that are happening in the world right now, including those related to the Iranian conflict.